How to access an AI scientist futurehouse.org platform. Well, it's really easy. You just go to futurehouse.org and you give it your email, you make up a password, and you're presented with these different scientists. These are virtual scientists, AI scientists. They're not human scientists. And then you just ask it questions. Here's one. Design a living salve, post-operative dental surgery. Consider NAD+, regenerative medicine, aloe vera, streptococcus salivarius, and so on. Applying the science of econometrics to the foregoing, estimate the TAM and total addressable market of your startup, whatever that happens to be. Now, because it will teach itself an area of science in about 15 minutes, you might start out by asking it, is econometrics a science, or whatever you're interested in? You have to frame it as a science question, because this is an AI scientist, right? So in about 15 minutes, it'll read everything that's ever been written about that area, determine whether it is in fact a science, and then you can start to proceed with questions. And in the case of econometrics, then you can ask it about the econometrics of a startup and the total addressable market and so forth. Mushrooms, that's clearly a science, so I didn't really have to do too much. I might have asked it about chaga particularly. Access the possibility of chaga mushrooms for regenerative medicine and biomaterials. Again, it took about 15 minutes, and then it came up with a scientific paper. This concerns the science and clinical practice of dentistry. What are the AI opportunities in the clinical practice of dentistry? Again, it answered that, but you may want to also get the same answer from ChatGPT, because they're quite complementary, and one's got a science background, one's got a more general background, but they complement one another really well. As the Bible says, in the abundance of artificial intelligence, there is wisdom. Here's another one. Correlate fascia, fluid mechanics, and signals processing mathematics. The problem with a lot of scientists is it can take them decades just to figure out one aspect of the complexity of science. And so they may not be aware of what the guy next door is doing or down the hall. I mean, it does help if they happen to meet at the coffee table, but they don't always do that. So artificial intelligence is very, very good at the correlations, and it can tell you, for example, that the mathematics of artificial intelligence, astronomy, and signals processing are basically the same, whereas it might take quite a while for a scientist in those fields to answer about it. Tell me about the science of oral probiotics for the mouth. There's one about ancient port. It wasn't too good on that one. In terms of the science of kind of what are the current issues and threats with global supply chains, not too good on that one. You kind of need a specialized AI for global supply chains. Correlate the response to physicists Fredkin, Wheeler, Lloyd, note up their work. It kind of missed the quantum information revolution that's been happening the past few years in quantum computers, and particularly it missed qubits. So that's a pretty big error and omission. You're a form of digital AI, aren't you? Actually, ChatGPT was smarter on both of those, believe it or not. What is the meaning and what are the implications saying among scientists God is a mathematician? It did a pretty good job on that. Correlate the mathematics of artificial intelligence in Chen and Zakin's work on quantitative physiology. That was huge. I mean, that was absolutely huge. I actually had to contact DeepMind and AlphaFold and the Physiome project in New Zealand and so forth, and say, listen, you guys are all working in separate rooms. You need to all get into the same room and combine your efforts, because AlphaFold has been a big disappointment. Sorry to me, Hassabis, but I love you, but you forgot the Physiome project, okay? And that's basically the mathematics of medicine, which is going to replace modern medicine. Anyways, so you basically just ask the questions. Correlations are very, very strong. Things outside the mainstream of science, it can be weak. It can teach itself some areas, but it teaches itself science better than let's say, startups.